His teacher was paralysis. Her teacher was addiction. With love, they found each other. You are here now for the Conscious Couple podcast.
Hello, people. Here we are. Well, as you can see, welcome to another episode of the Conscious Couple podcast. Although you may see something is different. This looks like a different face sitting next to me.
Yeah, I think I got a little smaller, a little younger.
Scott went through a huge transformation.
Crazy.
He's actually, we're calling him Benjamin Button. So he's actually like going down in age as he goes up in age. Yes. So all kidding, joking aside, welcome to another episode. Usually I'm sitting here with my beautiful husband, partner, soulmate, friend, lover, all the things, Scott. But he is not here today because we have a special guest. Today, as promised, for part 2 of Conscious Parenting, how to become a more conscious parent. If you didn't watch the first episode, stop this right now. Go back to the videos and watch part 2 because you'll part 1. Thank you. You'll probably be lost if you dive in now and you come on with our very special guest, my son, the one and only Isiah Cockrell.
It's a good one too.
So if you haven't watched part 1, stop it right now, go back, watch part 1, and then come watch part 2. So this is part 2 where we are going to dive into what it's been like for Isiah and his experience. So actually, officially, this is our first guest. And specially enough, this is also our producer and editor right here of the Conscious Couple podcast. So he plays all sorts of roles. So welcome.
Thank
Isiah,
you.
I
gotta say, I'm very grateful to be here and very honored to be the first.
There we go. Okay, so mostly the reason why I wanted Isiah to come on today is because in the first episode, or not the first episode, but the first part of Conscious Parenting, Scott and I dove into what conscious parenting means to us and how we try to practice it in our lives. And we thought, what better way than to actually hear what that's like than from one of our kids, and how this journey, my own personal spiritual awakening journey, has affected him, how I tried to apply conscious parenting to him and how that has affected him in his life and his own journey. And just to be able to share a little bit about his own journey as, you know, he aspires, and he can tell you, I won't speak for him, but he aspires to be somebody that helps people, guides people. He's had his own little, awakening journey. So with that being said, for those of you that don't know much about me, or again, if you haven't watched episode 1, I highly recommend you go watch it. But just to give you a little bit of a background so you know where we're starting from, 5 or 6 years ago, I begun my spiritual awakening, or the awakening process. And about a year and a half into that, I made the decision to move across the country from my kids. So I started my journey about a year and a half into it, made the decision to move across the country. And at first, the option was open to both of my kids to come with me. Obviously, I had long discussions with them about this, but my daughter made the decision to stay, and my son was going to come with me, Isiah. And I think like the day before he was supposed to arrive, he was going to finish out the semester of the midway through the school year and then head out. And the night before he was supposed to arrive, his dad showed up because he was staying with my mom at the time and said he was not going. And so he did not move with us. Fast forward 5 years later, he now lives with us in beautiful, sunny Florida. So it's been quite the journey in the last 5 years to get here. I think,
to say the least,
in my opinion, the bond that we had and shared never actually completely went away. It just was really tested for a couple years. And so I guess we can start with, I will ask you, what was that initial part of the journey like for you, and when did things start to shift?
Well, the biggest shift started when you first started awakening and you started leaving more to workshops to better your mind, better yourself. And I had seen that shift, and I had been getting involved a little bit because I was curious. I wanted to see what she was getting into. And it wasn't until she totally made the decision to stop being with her husband at the time. And that's when I started living with my grandma. And so my mom would kind of be back and forth between living with us, living with Scott in Pennsylvania, and going to workshops. And so it was kind of just bouncing around all over the place. So I didn't see her a whole lot while I was going to school and still living the normal life. And then I don't know how long it was until you officially left. And I was at my grandma's, I want to say, a few more months until my dad showed up. And that was a big shift because I changed environments. I moved out of, I was staying with my grandma in a small town called Hollis, Idaho, which is 15 minutes away from Kellogg, which is where I grew up. So it's still in the Silver Valley. But when my dad picked me up, I moved to Spokane, Washington, which although only an hour away, hour and a half away, it still is a different state and a totally different environment. And I had lived there off and on, like on the weekends, staying with him, but I didn't really have any friends there. I didn't know anybody. I hadn't gone to school there. And so I wanted to blame all of this negative feelings on my mom because she was the catalyst to this change that I didn't want to accept. And it's very easy to blame others for the internal feelings that we're having. And so a while we fought, and it was pretty tense between me and my mother for a while. And also I just had so many bad feelings. I was holding animosity towards my father as well, because I was like, well, I thought I was moving to Pennsylvania and now I'm living here and I don't want to be here. I don't like how I feel. I don't like anything. So everybody is kind of in my vision of red, and I just want to blame everybody except for myself. Which is very easy because you think when things are happening out of your control, you can't control how you feel and you can't control what you do, but you very much can. And I think as soon as school started, it was about 2 weeks before I actually got into school, moving with my dad, and I think that helped a lot. And making those social connections.
When school started?
Yeah.
I think that helped. Yeah.
Definitely.
Obviously.
Took my mind off of things. Made friends. I had a cousin that was going to school there, so I was able to fit in with his group, which was really nice. I was blessed to have that. And slowly but surely, I forgave my mother. And I think at a point I just wanted that relationship back with her, so it didn't really matter how I had felt or why I had felt it. But it was, I want to say, a year, probably a year after that I had moved with my dad that I fully understood why she'd left, understood the feelings that she felt, that she didn't want to feel, because she had full control of her feelings and her actions, which is amazing, and not a lot of people believe that they have that, and that has given me the drive to live the life that I want to live. And that's why I'm living here now, because I want to create my own opportunities in my own life, despite what others believe should be the normal life.
Right. And so, just to give people sort of a frame of reference, Isiah and I were, his dad and I got divorced when he was 2. We were kids when we got married, 19 years old. In fact, the same age as you right now.
I couldn't imagine getting married now.
Was how old your dad and I were when we had you. Yeah, crazy. So, at 2, we had split up, and just young kids, not really knowing what the hell we were doing. And Isiah lived with me mostly full time and went to his dad's on the weekends. And Isiah and I were incredibly close. We had a very special, deep bond. And so, going through that stage was incredibly heartbreaking, on both parts. It was incredibly heartbreaking for me to not be with you, and incredibly heartbreaking for you to not be with me. And the thing is that I knew for sure is that I knew I couldn't see what the result would be at that time. I knew it would take time to see the final end result, but I knew in my heart I had to do that. I knew it went against all logic, all reason. It went against what everyone said that you're supposed to do as a mother, that you're supposed to do as a person. That, of course, the feedback was not great. And it's a very small club that I have. And it's not to say that the decision that I made is for every person at all. Like, in fact, the opposite. The message that I talk about in conscious parenting is that you need to find what that thing is inside of you, what that answer is inside of you. And it may not be popular, and it may be actually, and probably most likely is, the hardest decision that you can make at the time. And it may not seem like there's any logic or reason to it, but for me, it was the first time in my life that I felt like I, as Isiah said, had control of my life. Like, I actually was in the driver's seat finally, and making decisions that were in alignment with me, that were really hard, but I knew there was a pathway. Some part of me deep down inside knew there was a pathway that I was carving for him and my daughter. And it wasn't the pathway, again, that most people can resonate with or understand even, and that was the challenging part, was like, I knew that not just that my kids couldn't understand it at the time, but that nobody else was going to be able to understand it because they weren't in my experience. And I knew that I just had to get through the next couple years, and that they would eventually see. And, as you said, it took some time. It took a lot of, back and forths and talking. But I think the thing that we've always shared is we've always had been able to talk on a very deep level, maybe more than most parents and kids can. I always trust. I had this innate trust in you. Not just trust in you, and trust that you would be okay no matter what. Like, I always knew you had that thing in you.
And I never really realized until now, the reason that we were so close is because she had gone so much when I was a kid, and I don't have a whole lot of memories of that, just between after she had divorced my father and lived at a few different places before meeting Sean, which is my stepfather. And so we were kind of all over the place for a little while. And so I think just her going through those different stages had brought us very close without me realizing it, because we had just gone through so much. And then moving into Kellogg, she was all I knew, and so I think we just always had this very unbreakable bond.
Yeah.
And so I knew when she left that she would still be there, and sometimes leaving is the biggest thing. Leaving the people closest to you is the biggest thing to help them, because it empowers them to see what is possible. For example, when she left me, I thought it was the worst thing in the world, until I got some lessons that I couldn't have learned any other way, that are so invaluable to me that I could never take back, like.
What were some of those lessons?
Like being able to take ownership of my own emotions, to not be able to blame anybody else besides myself, and to not blame anybody else for the decisions that they're making, because it is their life ultimately, not mine. And nobody is obligated to make a decision for me because that is their life, as I'm not obligated to make any decision for anybody else because this is my life. And I choose how I want to feel. I choose the reality that I want to live in. And so nobody else has the right to tell me that's right or wrong. But I don't believe there is a right or wrong anyways. Yeah. But another example of when I was living with my father, and I had just recently, a few months ago, moved to Florida here, that was very rough because we were pretty close, and I would say I was his world. I was his purpose, what he believes is his meaning of life is me. And so it was very difficult for me to leave. Although he knew that I'm big into travel and that I would be traveling at some point, it was still a difficult decision, especially with me dropping out of college. But since I have moved, he has made tremendous growth in his own life of finding what he wants to do and what even he doesn't want to do. And just being clear on some of the things in life that you think are giving you comfort, giving you this temporary happiness to get by. It's just a facade, and it's not the true sustenance of happiness.
Yeah. So how is that, like, having such, I don't know, I guess you could use the word such extremes, but how is that having one parent that's like, you are my whole world, everything, reason for living, and another parent that's like, you are not my whole reason for living. I love being your mom, but I am a person beyond being your mom, which then allows you to be your own sovereign soul, choosing your own life.
I mean, it's extreme for sure, but the good thing about extremes is it shows contrast.
Yeah.
And so the beauty of being able to see both extremes of each side is I can choose which side I want to go to of any length. If I want to go to the extreme of this side, if I just want to go to a little bit to this side, if I want to go to the extreme of this other side, if I want to just go to a little bit. And in my personal experience, I have very much enjoyed the own person. Clearly, because I live here. But sometimes it can be constricting to love somebody so much. And not that it's a bad thing to have so much love for somebody else, but you need to also appreciate yourself and appreciate your own enjoyment and beauty of life, because nobody else can give you the happiness besides yourself. No matter how much you think this woman is going to make me happy, how much you think having a kid is going to make you happy, being around somebody is going to make you happy. They're not making you happy. You're just allowing yourself to be happy when you're with them.
Yeah.
Instead of
a great way to
releasing that boundary bound by this person, because you're giving all of your power to them.
Yeah. So tell me just a little bit about being 19. You'll be 20 here in May, but being 19 and having a door open to, let's say, the spiritual world or self-help, whatever word you want to give it. What is that like for a 19-year-old? What has your experience been with that?
I mean, I would definitely say I still have a foot in the closet. But I feel like it's not a very mainstream thing for people my age now anyways. I think it's becoming more and more normalized, but it's just not really talked about. And I think a lot of people my age have very spiritual beliefs and have very spiritual ways of life without putting the label of spirituality on it, without even realizing what they're doing is spiritual. They're just trying to be happy because they're trying to figure it out themselves, you know, as we all are.
Yeah.
And I think it's becoming more accepting in this day and age to believe the things you want to believe, to do the things that you want to do without being judged. Yeah. And so I think more and more people are expanding and going out into exploring new things that they want to do and being happy by it and it being okay. And so I think as I get older, the more I preach it to my close peers and people my age, and even I'll just talk little spirituality about you create your own emotions, you create your own thoughts, you create your own reality by simply just saying like, oh, have you been thinking about that a lot? Has that been showing up? And just like little things like that. And it gets people, because they get it, they just aren't super woo-woo.
Yeah, they don't have like a framework for it.
Yeah.
They understand without understanding.
They haven't gone through the teachings, but they've got the basic ideology.
Yeah. So what have been some of the lessons that you have learned from, you know, not only just what we went through with me moving across the country and all of that, with that and with just your own journey of awakening, what are some of the really important lessons that you've come to learn on your own?
That everything is working out for you. And the only reason that everything is working out for me is because I believe it. And everything is working out for you as well. But you just have to believe it. And even in the hardships, the bad, the nasty, the whatever, it's still a learning lesson. It's still growth. It's still, you can take something away from anything. And whether you choose to see that you can take it away or not is up to you. And I always try to make the most out of my mistakes, make the most out of my hardships, so I don't have to go through it again, because it doesn't feel good. But being a human, it's near impossible. But that's just the beauty of life, is experiencing. And that's another huge lesson that I've taken away from my life, is just experience. Just experience. Like, there's no good or bad experiences. That is just the judgment that we put on it, instead of just experiencing, because that is what we do as humans, is experience. What we're doing 24/7 is experiencing. So why not make the most out of your experiences and truly appreciate what you are experiencing?
Yeah. So what would you say to, like, advice maybe that you could give? I'm going to ask you both, but I'm going to ask you one at a time so I don't confuse you. So what would be your advice to a parent right now that may be starting the process of uncovering, of awakening, of going, oh my God, maybe there's more to life. Maybe I'm meant for more. But what do I do? I have kids. I have a husband. Like, you know, how do I navigate this journey? Coming from your perspective, what would you say to that parent, mom or dad? Really doesn't matter.
So I haven't been a parent, so I take this with a grain of salt, because
right.
I only have one side of the story, but that's why you got part one, right?
Yeah.
But just love your kids unconditionally. Don't put any conditions to how they have to act, how they have to live their life, because ultimately it is their life. They know what makes them happy. They know what doesn't make them happy. So what has made you happy won't always make them happy, and they won't always want to do that, and that's okay, and that's beautiful, because that makes them human. That makes them be
Their
special.
own person.
Yes, that makes them
Not a extended version of you.
They're not a clone of you. They're their own person. Sure, they have your DNA in them and biological pieces of you, but not you. Not you. And there's definitely a line between discipline and not caring. And I don't like to say not caring, but trusting. And just finding that line and having communication with them, because having a parent that you can talk to. And for example, my father, he was always very open and never judged me for what I did. But because of the restrictions that he had, it always felt like he was. Because although he never punished me, it was the judgment that was punishment for me, or the thought of the judgment, and just allowing, because they're going to make their own decisions. They're going to make their own mistakes, and you have to let them. You have to let them fuck up, because if they don't, they won't learn. And you can give them every single fuck up you've done and try to teach them, and they may learn some, but some of them, they have to learn on their own.
Okay, so question part 2, since you are the child, what advice would you give to a kid that may be experiencing their parents changing, or one parent changing, or dynamics changing, and watching that happen? What advice would you give? If there are any young kids watching this podcast. All right, let's say other 19-year-olds. Let's say, what would you say to other 19-year-olds? In fact, I have a better question for you. What would you say to, teenagers, maybe age 17 and up, that may be starting to experience the same thing, like experience an awakening, and maybe, like you said, they don't have friends that can talk about it, but, what advice would you give them?
Well, those are two very good questions. So I'll start with the first, of other 19-year-olds going through household changes. And whether that be your parents waking up, of them making a big change and shift, don't judge them for it, because you don't know what they're going through. You don't know what they've gone through. And even if you do, you haven't experienced that. You haven't lived their life. And just find the thing that makes you happy and stick with it. No matter where you're being forced to move to, you can find a way. For example, for me, is climbing. I love climbing. I grew up in Idaho and Washington, where it's just mountains everywhere. I'm a climber at heart. And I moved to Florida, the flattest state ever. There's no rocks anywhere, but I find a way. I find a way, whether it be on gyms, on a bridge, on a random rock wall that I can find on a building. You know, you make do with what you have, because being able to have happiness from somebody else will always keep you unhappy until you keep that restriction to yourself, to, oh, I only have to be by myself to be happy. I don't have to be with anyone. Then you can truly be happy no matter what anybody else is doing.
That's awesome.
And for the second question of a 19-year-old waking up and doesn't really have friends or anybody to talk to, find a community on social media, on the internet, because it's so accessible. It's so easy to find a community. And I think those are kind of the biggest things, is to have somebody to talk to about your experiences, someone you can relate to, somebody who can hold you accountable, somebody who can hold you to your beliefs. And it's everywhere. You just have to find it. And once you find a community, then you don't feel so alone, and it starts to show up for you in your real life, because now it's in your RAS. So
Look at
there you go. Big
using
words.
big words. So, Isiah Cockrell, what are your plans for the future? What does the whole world look like to you from your 19-year-old perspective?
Well, the world is my oyster, so I can create whatever I would like.
It's very true.
And what that is undecided right now, because life is so vast and huge, and there's so much to experience. And I know there are a lot of experiences that I want to experience, such as climbing Mount Everest, such as traveling to every 50 state, to seeing the world, to going on incredible journeys, to making music, to making YouTube videos. You'll be seeing me. This will not be the end.
Well, and this technically isn't the beginning. So if you want to check out what 14-year-old Isiah looked like and the wisdom that he had at only 14 years old, you can actually go to our other YouTube channel. It's called The Freedom Project 222. If you just look up The Freedom Project 222 on YouTube, it will take you to the channel. And if you scroll down to the very bottom, the first two videos on that channel were literally called The Wisdom from a 14-year-old, I think is what the title was. But it was me interviewing Isiah at 14. And this was actually the first time that he came and stayed in Pennsylvania after I had moved, a few months after I moved. And they came and visited. And that was actually then. And, you know, that was the first time since I left that we got to, I think, really connect and for you to, like you said, understand a little bit of why I made the decisions I made, and I could understand and communicate with you where you were coming from, and really starting to build that trust back with each other and that understanding. And so anyway, you can go check that out and see where
it's a little lost in the YouTube sauce, but
you just go way down to the bottom and you'll see him there, because you know, I did always tell people that my son was like a little Buddha, because he did come out of me knowing more than all of us know for sure. And so to watch him, just to watch him develop his own path and become his own person, that to me what my conscious parenting journey, why it was important, so that you could have that door open to be whomever it was, to have the world be your oyster and find whatever door fit you, not my door, not your dad's door, not somebody else's door, but your door and your path and your journey, and to show you that you have the strength to do that, and that you can do that even when people tell you that you can't, that you don't have to live in that box, and to watch you grow, to watch you explore, to watch you just become deeper and deeper versions of you is just, it's an amazing thing to witness and not own. You know, I don't own who he is whatsoever. He gets to own that. And that to me is ultimately, oh, look at him. See, just, I don't get to own you. I was about to say, just like your mother. So Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's been an amazing journey, and people who are out there watching this may be really triggering for you. This conversation around conscious parenting, because it's a completely different paradigm shift from, your kid, you're the authority of your child, and if something's wrong, it's your child's fault, and if you have to, your mistakes can't be theirs, and you have to keep them from every single harm that is out there. And for me, I try to embody the opposite, which is, yeah, you're going to go through hard times, and don't try to avoid those or escape those, because those are what make you the person that you are. Those are where you find that internal strength within you that you could not find if your life was simply easy all of the time. And so, to watch him go through what we went through and then come out of that and not just come out on the other side, but become a better person, a different person, someone that could look at someone else and go, yeah, I've been through rough shit, dude. I've been through it, and I found my way through it. I found my way through it. And it's just been an honor to watch.
Thank you.
Yeah. So there you go. That concludes our shortest podcast episode ever.
The best.
And the best. Of course, it's the best.
We're missing someone, but
if you enjoyed this episode, you know what to do. Click on the like, click on the subscribe, click on the bell, so that, we all have way too many things in our calendars and keep track of. If you click the bell, then they just notify you when we post these every Thursday at 5 p.m. So you don't have to remember or guess. It just lets you know. So click on the bell. Tell us in the comments, what has your journey been like of awakening? What's your journey been like as a parent? Because as we all know, it is literally the toughest job and the biggest opportunity for your own awakening, as we dove into in the first episode where we talked about conscious parenting. Thank you, my son.
And I see a lot of those people out there. They're watching and not subscribing. I see them. Hit that button. I see you. Hit it.
He's the producer and editor. So
you better subscribe.
There you go. From the Mouse of Babes. We love you all. We will see you next week. Mwah.